Four cabinet secretaries and several principal secretaries have stepped down, and in studio this evening is Professor Peter Kagwanja, a political analyst. Thank you very much for your time this evening. Let me begin with, is this the beginning of the fight against graft in the country, or is the president reacting to pressure that he's been playing lip service in the fight against corruption?
I think there has been investigation going on, meaning that that's where the president has gotten his report. But this investigation has not been public. So what the president is doing is to walk the talk. That yes, you said we have to deal with corruption, and here is the way out. Now, the other point he's making is that his government is not a PR government. It is a government of action. And I think he's also making the point that corruption is not a collective responsibility. It is an individual responsibility. It is not a tribe on trial. It's not a community on trial. It is an individual on trial. The fourth point I think he's making is that we have to end this witch hunting. If you are mentioned, step aside. That is not an indication that you are guilty. You'll be, when you are charged and tried and convicted, that's when you'll be guilty, and then action will be taken. So I think this is a bold move. It is a decisive move. It doesn't appear to me like a PR exercise. It's a serious exercise.
And let's talk about the EACC's list of shame and the fact that the Commission's integrity is now being questioned, as you've seen in our earlier reports. The fact that the report was, of course, confidential, and, of course, the fact that the Commission is seen and has been seen previously to have power games even within it. What are your thoughts on that?
First and foremost, the Commission itself, from its philosophical foundations, is outside the execution. It can investigate, but at the same time, a commission, if you compare with what is happening in Britain, UK, for example, America, the body that investigates is within the government, within the security apparatus, the law and order machinery. This is, slightly aside, and it was put there in 2003 as part of the pressure by civil society. What has happened is that commissioners become themselves under pressure from different bodies, political interest, business interest, international cartels. They are all under that pressure. And therefore, the idea of people in power stepping aside is basically to enable the body to do its work, and it's an admission that it would need some strengthening in order to be able to deal with this kind of matters without having to be intimidated by special interests.
Okay. Yeah. And I'll still remain with the EACC and, of course, the Director of Public Prosecutions, and the fact that they now have 60 days to conclude investigations under the law. Does the President have the power to give a 60-day directive, and what are these 60 days anchored on?
Well, it's a question of the fact that he is the chief executive. And as the chief of the executive company, you know your terrain very well. I think the president knows his terrain extremely well, that within 60 days, and he has indicated how that's going to be done by calling upon the Attorney General, calling upon the DPP to work in a coordinated fashion, and therefore, and making a very powerful argument in public that, justice delayed is justice denied. And therefore, for the justice of those who have been accused, if you are kept for too long without being tried, you are being crucified, lynched in public. Therefore, it is important for them to be either exculpated or committed, as the case might be, within a reasonable time. I think that's the point he's making.
And the 60 days reasonable time in your
it is reasonable because already they are under investigation, or they have been under investigation. Remember, this list was extracted from an ongoing process. It is not like these people were got today. It is scandals that have been going on. And I think it's reasonable. Perhaps even 1 month perhaps would have been reasonable if, and you remember there was a request that the sitting is on a day-to-day basis, so there's no postponement of July, next month and next year.
And the list of shame, Professor, has 175 names, and pundits are arguing that there are obvious misses. I don't know how fair this is, but it has been said in a lot of circles that there are obvious misses. What's your take on that?
The take is that the president did not make the list. The other take is that the EACC did not make the list yesterday or when the president was making the State of the Nation.
Okay.
The list is extracted from people mentioned from diverse scandals, from Anglo leasing, land-related scandals, the so-called Chicken Gate scandal. It's a whole range of scandals where people have been mentioned. Remember, in addition to what the president mentioned yesterday, there is already a group that is being tried on the basis of agro-leasing. And what has escaped the public is that long before the State of the Nation was issued, the president had already taken place, a step. From last year, from I think 2003, 2013 through 2014, there have been collaboration with the international governments that are friendly to Kenya to basically dig deep into the agro-leasing scandal.
Right.
I think the outstanding thing, Lillian, is whether all these scandals, particularly those ones that have international dimensions, are going to enable Kenya to repatriate, to get back the money limited back to the country to do what it was supposed to do before it was either smuggled out or involved in this scandal, because Kenya has lost a lot of resources to these cases.
And just as we wind up, Professor, I want to get your thoughts on the fact that there's been talk on this now opening ground for political witch hunt, particularly regarding the names that have been listed and what allegiances they have in the political divide. Your views?
I think that's likely to be seen, because political stalwarts are going to defend their compatriots. It is expected in public. Somebody will say, don't use corruption for politics, don't do this. But what is going on is a very transparent process. Kenyans are with the president. I think what the president said, yes, if you are not going to adhere to what I'm saying, I commit you to the court of the sovereign of the land. And the sovereign of the land are the people of Kenya. And already, if you get the euphoria that that related to the president's announcement, just to underline that this is one of the very few standing ovations we have had, not only in this country, even in many other countries of the world on matters of corruption. It is in itself, it's history. What that means is that the president is basically committing, walking in two parallel paths, or putting the war on corruption on two steady keels.
Right.
The first one is the formal judicial process, where he has the capacity to get people to go through the judicial process to be cleansed. He is doing that, and that is the executive. For the other arms, he's telling the people concerned, do your part. If you don't do, the public is watching you. So judiciary, parliament, the governors, the president doesn't have to push them. The people of Kenya have heard and have known who has been mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, we are out of time, Professor Peter Kagwanja. Thank you so much for your thoughts on this matter. And indeed, thank you very much for joining us on Citizen Weekend. Let's move on with other stories of the day.